Hello and welcome. I am Maestra Teacher and this is my 5th grade Oasis channel. I've been a teacher for more than 20 years and I've taught gen ed and bilingual classes as well. In today's video, we will be discussing the skill of making connections. If you are a new teacher or new to 5th grade, know that making connections is one of the standards you will have to teach this school year. We teach the students that good readers make connections by using what they already know and connect it either to themselves, to another book or text, or maybe the world or media. Making connections basically promotes student engagement with what they are reading. And not only that, it helps them deepen the comprehension and understanding of a text. There are 3 types of connections that we teach our students. Number 1 is called text to self, where they're going to connect things to their own life. How can they relate to something? Also, their second one, text to texts, which means that the students are going to learn how to connect text between one text and another, and text to the world, where the students are going to make connections between something they read and something that is happening in the world. I would like to share with you now how I teach making connections using the I do, we do, you do teaching model. Making connections is a skill that you have to teach several times throughout the years. It's a spiral one, but in the beginning of the year is really the time when you should teach all the 3 components thoroughly so that the students have mastered it since the beginning and are able to use it throughout the year. In the first part of my class or my teaching model, the I do part, where I directly teach what is to make connections, I present to the students. First of all, I explain to them the reason that why good readers should make connections, and I take my time explaining each of the 3 connections, the text to self, text to text, and text to world, so that the students really understand where they're. You can teach this by directly presenting maybe a PowerPoint or some sort of presentation where you are going to explain to the students each of the connections. There's plenty of videos online in YouTube that explains the types of connections. You're always also going to give them some guide questions for each of the connections that the students can ask themselves as they are reading and creating those connections. There's also many different kinds of graphic organizers that you are able to use for the students to complete these activities of connections. The first one is text to self. To teach text to self, you have to explain to the students that basically what they're going to be doing is creating a link between what they are reading and their own personal experiences. I like using this one for different fictional stories where we have different characters, and I ask the students, okay, can you relate to this character? Is there something from this story or this character in particular that you can relate to? Something, maybe the character went through the same situation as you have, or maybe there's a birthday party in the story. How can you relate that to your own life? So I usually make them write about their experience and how it is related to the characters of a story or the any fictional story that we just read. 2 good guide questions that you can use when you're teaching text to self. You can, of the characters can you relate to and why? Explain. Does anything in this story or book reminds you of your own life? Explain. For the second kind of connection, the text to text connections, to me, this is the most important of all, because basically this is the one that will be tested in the standardized test at the end of the year. So yes, I expose the students to all the 3 types of connections, but you are going to focus mostly on text to text. You are going to teach the students for text to text that they're basically going to link what they are learning in a current text with what they have learned in a previous text before. So that's what making connections text to text means. And again, in the standardized test, this is the one that basically is going to be tested. They're going to have one passage and then a second passage, and they have to be able to connect maybe similarities, differences, or ideas. How are the authors in the 2 passages alike, what are their points of view, and how are they different, and so on. So this is the one you're going to focus the most. When you're teaching also text to text, you're going to have different genres, and that you have to be able to make connections between, for example, poetry and nonfiction, or fiction and nonfiction, or drama and poetry, because you don't know what the state test is going to bring. You have to prepare the students to make connections between different genres as well. And the 2 guide questions for this part, you can ask the students to think about how are the books or texts similar and different. You can even use Venn diagrams or graphic organizers to do this. And you can also ask them, does this book or text remind me of a previous book or text that I've already read? Always remember to practice with the students, if you can, on a weekly basis, how to make connections in these kind of books that are state test practice books, because they bring the 2 stories, and then they bring questions that are similar to the ones that they're going to get in the real state test. For this last type of connections, you're going to teach the students basically that when they're doing text to world connections, that means that they're linking something they've read or are reading right now to something that is happening in the real world right now. Something, it could be related to science, it could be to social studies, and so on. For example, if you are teaching about the weather, that's something they can go to the news and watch and relate to, and make the connections between what they're learning related to climate and weather, and then when they go out and see the weather, and when they see in the news, or if there's a winter storm or something like that, they can relate that to it. Some guide questions that you can use during this time, it could be, does this remind you of anything in the world? Or they can also ask themselves, how is this book or text similar or different to what is happening out there in the world? Once you're done teaching directly the 3 types of connections, then students can practice each one of them. If you're doing text to self, then you model that. You can read a short story and model how that character in a story relate to your life as a teacher. You can share that with your students. You can write about it, or you can have them work in pairs for text to text, where maybe they can share that you can give them 2 books so they can both read them, discuss them, or one person can read one book and the other, and then talk about it and make some connections among them. They can complete, again, graphic organizers and so on. And the same thing for text to the world. You can use it again for the science class, or maybe even social studies. For the you do part of the lesson, again, at this part, the students work on their own. You're done explaining and directly teaching. They already practice it with you. They already practice it in pairs. And now it's time for them to do it on their own. Here are some examples of work that I did with my students. In this case, I assigned them online to different books. We used the platform called Learning AC, and I provided them a book. I believe we read about car racing, and we compared then NASCAR and Formula One, and I have them create and make connections between the 2 readings, and this is how it looks like. They first wrote what they learned from the first reading. They then wrote down the different facts of the second reading, and then they created the similarities and differences among them. Well, there you have it. That's how I teach my making connections skill. Please write in a comment how you do it. Maybe I can learn from you as well. Like my video, subscribe to my channel. I love having you here, and I'll see you in the next one. See you soon.